I've never
I
heard.
would not suggest it.
Yeah. That'll be a good program for you.
Well, you can always.
Plan on trying to actually get up and see a game.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He's looking forward to it.
We used to go to baseball games with them.
So this is broadcast stream.
They got a nice facility, but it's not great. It's a huge crowd.
Right.
And you're sitting real close to them. You see everything.
Yeah.
And their softball. Very relaxed. I had been to basketball games since they opened that new arena.
In Northwest Florida?
No,
You been over to Northwest
I've been to
Florida?
Northwest Florida.
did
I've
you?
been in the building.
You wouldn't believe that arena. Man, it's nice. It's really nice.
Thomas has called some games there.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, we don't miss none.
His daddy played good.
But I'm due at a game.
Yeah.
Do the people come out and pitch?
I went to watch the girls play Tuesday night.
Or is it mostly?
Both of them are under
I can't hear about
I'll
it.
tell you what, that team girls play Tuesday
We got
night.
it at 8 club, we got that.
We don't have a business.
But I like what they
I laughed at them in the
big
first
name, that's the
I mean, it was
they were.
2 minutes after the first quarter. 43 or 4. You know, it's just. I understand that's sad for the bottom of the schedule. A lot of teams don't work.
Yes,
A lot of times we have to schedule just to but that was just
those games don't make it any better.
no, absolutely not. I'll tell you what I'll say is most impressive about this guy, that team plays.
You and Auburn play?
Time they step on the court, and it don't matter who they're playing, they play a ball. And that's a testament to coaching.
You're going to have off night shooters, but coaching shows up in the sense of Freeport Middle School and Emerald Coast had the middle school team Saturday.
Is that on here somewhere? He's a pro. He got mad at him because he was trying to
More than
He was trying to
They
do
was
his
not getting good
retirement thing for him, and they kind of blew him off.
Sell
And
on
then they
them.
kept wanting to come in and send all this
As
on
a
games.
coach, I get you a good shot.
Yeah.
I can't make you make it.
And they will just give you like a quick.
Karen, you ready? Mac, you ready? If you would please stand and join me for the pledge and the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Father, Lord, we thank you for this day and all your many blessings. We thank you for each one who's here. We ask now as we move to conduct your business that you would help us, Lord, to do it in a manner that's pleasing to you and in the best interest of our citizens. Lord, we ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Neighbors, get Wes.
We'll go ahead and open the meeting, and the first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. We have a motion.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Announcement, I guess by way of announcements, first, Mac, I want to introduce Mike Harbin as a new member of the board. Hopefully he won't have too bad an experience for his first meeting tonight. Welcome aboard, Mike.
Thank you.
Hopefully it'll be a very good one.
Yes.
Welcome, Michael.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you.
Thank you.
It's on you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The first item, item number 1 under the legislative items. This is our proposal to change the thresholds for major minor developments. We wish to review this further with the Matrix Design Group that's under contract to update our comprehensive plan and land development code. So we would wish that this item be tabled tonight and allow us to bring it back when it's ready for this board's consideration. It'll be sometime later in the springtime.
Okay, we have a motion.
Motion to table till a date certain.
We have a
or date
motion, we have a
uncertain.
second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Mr. Chair, if I could just make one statement, just to clear up some misinformation that might be out in the public related to this particular item. There's some members of the public that seem to think this proposal was to eliminate the development order process for certain projects. And
That's what you told me.
And that absolutely is not the case. I just want to go on record and make that very clear. This is not to eliminate the development order process for anyone.
I understand. Thank you.
But we will bring this item back when that chapter is ready for your consideration.
Thank you, Mac.
The next section is the quasi-judicial section.
Sorry. Anyone who anticipates testifying on any of the items on the agenda tonight, if you would stand and raise your right hand to be sworn in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you will provide to this board will be the truth? Thank you. Whenever you come forward, if you would just state and spell your last name and state that you've been sworn in.
Mr. Chairman, the first item tonight under our QJ agenda is the Draper Lake CAL, or Communication on Wheels. This has been reviewed by Renee Bradley, and I'd like to ask her to introduce this project.
Good evening, Renee Bradley, B-R-A-D-L-E-Y, and I have been sworn in. This is a major development order application submitted by AT&T on behalf of Sierra Holdings LLC, requesting approval to construct a temporary 8-foot cell tower. The project is located on Seacroft Drive, east of County Highway 393. This project will be on about a 1,600 square foot area within a 2.5 acre parcel within the neighborhood infill land use category. This is also the parcel in which we approved the Santa Rosa Beach CAL to go on, and I believe we have one more coming after this one.
Okay.
And I'll be glad to answer any questions for the board.
Anybody have any questions for staff at this time? All right, is anybody here for the applicant?
Yes, my name is Pat. My name is Patton Hahn, H-A-H-N. I'm with the Baker Donaldson Law Firm, which submitted the application. This is a temporary tower simply there because the water tower has been taken down.
Okay. This is the second one of these we've had so far, so anybody, any questions of the applicant? We had nobody sign up to speak?
Yeah, well, how long does this, before you get a permanent one? That's just a question.
I'm there in the process of finding a site for that. This is only for a maximum of a year. We would have to come and have that
One year.
reapplied.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, thank you. We have nobody sign up. Is there anybody who wishes to speak on this item from the public? Seeing none, we'll close the public portion of the meeting on the item. Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is the Lot 28 development in the South Walton Commerce Park. This is a request to approve by final order. The project's been reviewed by Tim Brown, and I'll ask him to introduce it.
Hey, good evening, Tim Brown with Planning and Development. We received an email on this project that we just handed out that came in yesterday. This is a request for 2 industrial buildings totaling 11,750 square feet on 0.88 acres with a future land use of business park. And like Mike said, it's in the South Walton Commerce Park. There's 2 conditions of approval in referencing permits for the project. Other than that, unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, this project is consistent with the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. There's no proportionate fair share. There are available trips on Highway 98 East.
Okay.
You said this email was for this project?
I'm sorry, no, I got them confused. I was trying to, this is actually not for this project. I apologize. It's for the shops at Inlet.
Okay. All right. Anybody have any questions for Staff? All right, is anybody here from the applicant?
Good evening, Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering. I have been sworn in. Robert, R-O-B-E-R-T, Carroll, C-A-R-R-O-L-L. I'm here to answer any questions.
Commissioners have any questions for the applicant? This looks pretty straightforward. So.
Yeah, this is very easy.
This is one of those unusual easy ones.
Yes, sir.
Okay. We had nobody sign up. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to address this item?
Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close the public comments. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to item number 4, the Coast Realty Office relocation. It's a request approved by final order. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown, and he'll introduce the project.
Thank you, Mike. Yes, this is a request. It's an existing building that they're relocating, but it's a 1,885 square foot commercial office space on 0.96 acres with the future land use of VMU. It's located on the north side of Highway 98 east of Old Ferry Road and west of Apostles Way. This went to the Design Review Board and was approved by a 5-0 vote at their meeting on November 2nd. Again, there's no proportionate fair share. There are available trips on Highway 98 East. There are some conditions relating to fire apparatus and to permitting. Other than that, unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, this project is consistent with the Land Development Code and Comprehensive Plan, and the previous and this staff report I'd like to enter into evidence.
Accepted.
And I'll take any questions you may have.
Where's this moving from?
I'm not sure where the current location is.
Seagrove.
Seagrove?
Yeah. Actually,
Okay.
Watersound.
Okay. I don't have any commissioners.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ken.
Good evening, I'm Scott Jenkins with Jenkins Engineering. Be happy to answer any questions you guys have. It's pretty straightforward though, I think.
Commissioners, any questions for applicant? Not seeing none. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
We had nobody sign up for this item either. Is there anybody who wishes to address it? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Commissioners?
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Michael, you're getting off way too easy.
I know it.
Well, that's, you're speaking too soon, I think. This brings us to number 5, the Shops at Inlet. This is another request approved by final order. It's been reviewed by Tim Brown also, and I'll ask him to introduce this project.
Okay, now I'll get it right. The email I handed out is for this project, the Shops at Inlet. This is a request for 13,462 square feet of retail space on 1.46 acres with the future land use of neighborhood infill with the Inlet Beach Traditional Neighborhood Plan designation of neighborhood commercial. It's located at the northeast corner of North Walton Lakeshore Drive and US Highway 98. This is where Dollar General was previously proposed. This went to the Design Review Board on November 2nd, and they approved the project except for lighting by a vote of 5-0. At their meeting last Thursday, they approved the lighting. They wanted them to bring the poles down, not as tall, and to group them together, and they did that. So they approved the lighting last week.
Okay.
Again, there's no proportionate fair share. Highway 98 East has available capacity. Conditions for permitting, and there's a condition there. If you look at the master plan, that also includes the project immediately to the east. They're doing cross-access, and they're going to include that project, but they're two standalone projects.
Okay.
So This one is the 2 lots to the west, and then that one is the lot to the east, and that's going through the approval process separately. But I just want to make you aware that the master plan shows the whole thing, how it's interconnected and the parking and everything, but this particular project is just the 2 lots to the east. So I would like to enter my staff report into evidence, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Accept the commissioners, any questions? This is not a Dollar General?
No, it's a retail shopping center.
Okay. I kinda like Dollar General, so.
Excellent. Sydney?
Yes.
The applicant is, who's the applicant?
F&F Enterprises. It's John Freer.
I think I have a conflict. I
Okay.
better abstain.
All right.
That doesn't hurt the quorum, does it?
Yeah, we saw the plan.
I'm sorry, I just realized who that was.
That's all right, we're used to attorneys making mistakes. Anybody else have any questions for staff on this?
Not right now.
Okay, thank you.
The applicant?
Good evening, Robert Carroll, McNeil Carroll Engineering. I am the engineer of record and the agent, ROBERT, 17800 Panama City Beach Parkway. Okay, so Tim gave you a great synopsis of what we're proposing to do. It is one single building located at the intersection, 13,462 square feet. It'll be a multi-tenant type building, kind of like the ones that he's done in the past. F&F Enterprises, John Freer is the developer. He's done multiple projects, lives in Walton County, develops in Walton County. He owns Shades, Crossings at Inlet Beach. So we've been here before you on several other projects. I think you'll know he's a respectable developer. And anyway, so it is a multi-tenant type building. We have had a community meeting with the neighbors to address any and all concerns that they have. There are some people here in the audience from Inlet Beach. I know they'll have an opportunity to speak as well. The main issue that we heard from the community meeting was access. So they were concerned about access, how they're interconnecting with the neighborhood. So what we did is they asked us to go to DOT and see if we can get another median cut and not utilize North Walton Lakeshore Drive. We have turned a copy in to staff. I've got copies here for all if you want it. It's a letter from DOT stating that you can't have another median access. So that's not possible. We've also shared that with the neighbors, so they're aware of that as well. Also, per the Inlet Beach Neighborhood Plan, which is we're part of, per 3.4, says the neighborhood plan, neighborhood commercial, which is what this is intended to provide business uses that serve the neighborhood and traveling public. So without a driveway on North Lakeshore Drive, there is no interconnectivity with the neighborhood. Then everybody on the north side is going to have to get on 98, drive past the project, go down, make a U-turn, and come back in. So it's really not a good service to not have it interconnected with the neighborhood. So we'll have east and westbound connection. We're going to put in a right turn lane, which gets them safely off the roads. We've gone through design review board, as Tim said. We've satisfied them, but we thought it was extremely important to have that interconnectivity. So again, I think that someone may speak and may not speak. I'm not sure, but you'll see that just to the east there is the existing Spicy Noodle that already had a previous development order for an oyster bar, so we've got interconnectivity with that as well. Again, just being good stewards and trying to not have as many access points. So
Makes a lot more sense to keep the traffic off the highway if you can.
yes, sir. And also where we've got this driveway, it allows us to, so if someone's going to head back east, going back to Bay County, they can actually come across, get in the left turn lane, do a U-turn there instead of having to go all the way down to the next one at Orange Street. So it does minimize those trips. So again, trying to be good stewards, trying to do a nice development just like the rest of them and being responsible. So
Is there a cut there at the, where you go into the Spicy Noodle?
there's an existing cut there now, yes, sir. And we're shifting that and upgrading it and putting in the turn lane and having two businesses share that same access point.
Now-
Spicy Noodle and this
So
one.
basically, you could do it like there's two access points and they go around the project. One comes into Spicy Noodle
Yes,
Off
sir.
of 98, then the other one comes off North Walton Lake Shore.
Yes, sir. They're interconnected there. So the neighbors can utilize that drive, or anybody that's eastbound will use the left turn lane, come up and turn immediately into the project.
So let me understand, if you're going back to Panama City, you still gotta make a U-turn to go back.
Oh, yes, sir, absolutely. But if you were to go out to Lake Shore, you can't go straight because there's markings out
Right,
there.
right.
So it's more advantageous to use our driveway on 98 because you can actually cross and get into the turn lane.
Would there ever be, not make a U-turn?
Not from North Walton Lake Shore, no, sir. There's little barricades there that they have placed. They were having a lot of issues.
I'm asking, would the state ever do that? Because I drive through there every day.
No, sir. We have met with
And
DOT.
that's-
And we had asked about, there was concern about, can a light go there? And DOT, they did a study themselves, and they were not interested in putting a light there. There was not enough traffic to warrant a light there. And they were having lots of cars from the south side. They would come into that access and try to make their way around to go north. And so therefore, they put those barricades there. That way you're forced to have a bidirectional opening.
There's been some U-turns, there's been some really problematic things right there.
DOT studies say that the U-turns are safer, so that's why they've changed. You'll notice most of those medians, they've changed them to where they're
That's not my
bidirectional.
call, that's the
Yeah,
state.
So,
that's a state.
yeah, but that's an existing opening there.
Anybody else have anything for the applicant?
You have any idea what kind of businesses are gonna go into these shops at
There'll
this
be
stage?
individual retail type shops, same as
Nobody's got a
the owner's here. I don't know if he has any potential clients or not, but I don't know if he wants to address that. But they're all small individual units, just like there are at the one at the other end.
Anything else? Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you, sir.
We do have a couple people who signed up to speak on this. Bob Smith.
Actually, it's all right with you gentlemen. My name is Rich Gaffey. I'd like to go first. I'm kind of the lead-in act for Mr. Smith, if that's okay.
That's fine.
My name is Rich Jaffe. It's Jaffe. I am the president of the Historic Inlet Beach Neighborhood Association. And yes, I was sworn. The reason that we're here, as Mr. Carroll stated, we have had multiple meetings with these folks. And as an association, as a community, we do not have a problem with this development in general. We have an ongoing problem and continue to have a problem as I stand here with something that you just pointed out, and that is the access and egress. From the start of the discussions on this development, there have been significant issues raised, and this same issue came up with the Dollar General store. As you are driving towards Panama City, unless you come onto North Walton Lakeshore, the only way to get in here is going to be to go up to Grand Point, pull a U-turn, and come back. North Walton Lakeshore is a very narrow residential street. We are talking about increasing traffic on that street to be a primary turn-in if you are headed towards Panama City, to come off 98, turn up North Walton Lakeshore, and then go in this back passageway that you see back there, and it's reasonably large. Our concern is and has been that you are going to dramatically increase the amount of traffic, commercial traffic, coming into a totally residential neighborhood here. And coming out of it, you have no choice but to turn right, go down, and pull yet another U-turn, which is why we pushed initially. Mr. Freer and a number of members of our board had discussions about trying to get FDOT to agree to put a traffic light at North Walton Lakeshore. That didn't fly. Then we pushed for a median cut so that people could, coming off 98, turn in the main entrance, which is where the old Spicy Noodle was or is. And that's going to be the primary entrance to this development. FDOT came back and said, no, you can't have a median cut there. I cannot stand here and tell you that I have a good answer for how you do this. But I will tell you that our community does not believe that this is a safe access and egress into this development. It's going to jam up a very small residential street with a lot of commercial traffic. And you will hear from Mr. Smith his individual and very specific problem with where this access road is going to come and go. I wish I could tell you that we had a good solution for this. Maybe that's what you all are charged with doing, or what Mac and his folks are responsible for, coming up with better ideas. But as it stands now, this is not a good bet for that neighborhood. We have attempted to work with Mr. Freer. Mr. Freer has attempted to work with us. We've attempted to work with FDOT. I don't know what the answer is, but I will tell you that this is not a good one, although it is an essential one for Mr. Freer's development. He has said as much. We know that. We may not have a solution here, but we do not believe that this is a good answer for access and egress into that commercial development, and we don't believe it's a safe one either. At the absolute very least, a couple of our board members have requested that there be consideration given to at least putting a sidewalk on the side of the street where the development is to get people out of the roadway. Right now, people walk down that roadway along with the cars that come and go because there's no other place to walk. You start increasing traffic, and at least a sidewalk there would give people someplace other than walking in the street with a dramatic increase in the number of vehicles that are going to be coming and going.
Okay.
Thank you.
You may not know the answer to this, and if that you don't, that's fine, but what's the right-of-way, the county right-of-way on North Walton Lake Shore? How many feet?
Mac would be the better one to answer that question.
Is there a turn lane, or is there space for a turn lane to sort of diffuse some of that traffic?
Off North Walton Lakeshore?
Yeah, or 33 feet?
66 total is the right of way.
Are there any other improvements you could think of that could be made to Lake Shore that would alleviate some of this?
As narrow as it is, you got me. It's, and also, I mean, realistically, if you look at the idea of semis, which will be coming in probably to stock some of those stores, coming in off North Walton Lakeshore, there's no room for anybody else.
But what I was meaning about a turn lane was a turn lane into this project, which would take off of, so this would, you could go through, there'd be through traffic on Lake Shore, and then to get into this project would have a turn lane.
Yeah, that might be a great idea. But I mean, thinking of the semis going in that way, realistically, the only access for semis is going to get in the main entrance is to go up to Grand Point and turn around. And you know what it looks like when semis try to cross 98 and do U-turns and all the rest. It is a serious and very real issue for our neighborhood and our community. And again, we don't have a problem with what Mr. Freer wants to put in there. We're good. You know, there's going to be an oyster bar there. I'm good with that. But as far as the traffic goes, we still have a problem with it. And I haven't heard a good answer.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Bob Smith?
Hello, I'm Bob Smith, SMITH. I have been sworn in. I don't do this well, so I apologize for my nervousness, but I live, my house is right across from, I wish I had, can I?
Yeah, I brought these for everybody. Your house.
Right. I'll pass it to you guys.
Cindy, you need to handle them?
So, Mr. Smith, would you like to make that an exhibit to tonight's record?
Sure.
Okay. How many copies do you have?
I brought 9.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, so
I handed it to him, and you're more than welcome to spread them out. They're fine.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Nice.
So this is from Mr. Carroll. This is a document from Mr. Carroll.
That's from him, yes.
He's provided it.
But I'm using it
But it shows him what he's looking for. So.
Gotcha. Okay, well, we'll just make it exhibit 1. Or,
Okay.
well, no, we already know the staff report, so exhibit 2.
Well, first of all, let me reiterate what Rich said about, I don't have any problem with, you know, the development they're wanting to do. It's going to be really nice. But I am afraid that it is going to create, at worst, a dangerous situation with traffic, and at best, an unsafe situation. And I'm speaking for, if you look on the plot there, right across Lakeshore Drive from where their driveway is my access to my house. And just to the north of that is my brother's house, and to the north of that, my sister's about to build a house. And I'm basically speaking for them as well. They feel the same way, that we don't have a problem with the development, but we do have a strong concern about the traffic that it's going to create. And my grandkids play in the driveway, and you know, there would be a lot of traffic dumped onto our road, which is, it's already sometimes hard to get out of my driveway just with the neighbors coming back and forth. And also the traffic that's coming out and getting on 98, that is already a very dangerous intersection there. And I can't see putting more traffic in there to line up. And I don't know how many cars will be coming in and out of there, but if it's very many, you have to sit there for quite a while if you've ever, you know, crossed that or got onto that intersection. I don't know that the cars wouldn't back up all the way to, you know, the next road up there. So I have, you know, a real safety concern about that. And like Rich said, we have talked with Mr. Freeze, and we've tried to come up with ways, and they've tried. But, you know, I will say that, you know, the Spicy Noodle has been there for years, and its access was off 98, and I don't know of any issues, and they had a lot of business, and we were never bothered by it. So just my opinion, they would be able to get in and out of their complex with the existing exit and entrance onto 98. So, yeah, I think one of the things that they said was important to them about this access off of Lakeshore was neighborhood customers, which I understand, and eastbound customers, people coming towards Panama City. Well, for the people coming towards Panama City, it's less than 1/10 of a mile to the median cut where they can make a U-turn and come right into where their development is. To me, that seems like it would be a safer situation. And two, you know, any delivery trucks that would be coming off North Lakeshore Drive into there, it's just going to make it even more dangerous, especially with pedestrians and my family and kids. I just can't imagine big trucks turning into that little small road off of an already small road.
Mr. Carroll, is there a way that you could limit deliveries to the main entrance instead of using this entrance? Commercial deliveries?
Yes, sir.
I would think that would, I understand the concern with the trucks coming down there because that could tie up traffic significantly. Is there a way you could restrict that to where a commercial delivery could not be made from that entrance?
Yes.
I would think that would be an easy solution for that part. You could restrict it.
If you want me to, for the record.
Yeah, please do. If you just give just a minute, okay, Mr. Smith?
Absolutely.
Robert Carroll for the record. So Mr. Freer just said that he'll be glad to put in the lease agreements that no commercial traffic or delivery trucks be allowed to come in that way, that they have to utilize that front entryway. So
I appreciate
he
it. I
controls
think
the leases.
that's a legitimate concern, I
Sure,
think. That
absolutely.
commercial traffic coming through there could be, and I appreciate you being willing to do that.
Signage, if we need to put a sign
Sure.
Okay.
on North Walton,
So-
no commercial vehicles.
That would be helpful.
But that commercial, you know, that entrance on that side, so you've got multiple things. One, I told you about the neighborhood. The neighborhood plan
Right.
specifically states it, and I think the neighborhood wants connection to it.
Well, I think that's important, and that's why I say if you could just
Sure.
restrict it from commercial deliveries,
Absolutely.
I think that would be a big help.
He can control, you know, that in the lease.
You can
agreements.
control that part.
Absolutely. And the other part is that if you don't have an access, if I'm driving and I see this, it's enticing. I get in the turn lane, then I come up. Well, then guess what? I have to go in the neighborhood to turn around if I don't have that access point.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
thank you.
And the other concern that they had was, about the, the neighborhood business coming in, which I totally understand. I'll be one of them coming into their business. But I think a possible, at least helpful solution to that would be to make this entrance, if we're gonna have an entrance there anyway, if you guys approve it, I think it would be a whole lot better for the neighborhood and everybody concerned if that was just a one-way in to that business and not back out onto North Lake Shore. That would eliminate traffic backing up, trying to get back on 98. And if they had a one-way into there, and then when they got ready to leave, just leave on 98, then that would at least be better than them coming in and out all the time.
I can see your point. I just don't know that would work. I mean, I don't know how you'd enforce it to begin with.
Well, I think the neighborhood plan, if I understand correctly, at least encourages, maybe requires access to the neighborhood. And if I were living to the north and I went to the Oyster Bar that may come in there, and if I had to go all the way out to 98, and I would rather just get out there on Lake Shore and go north.
I agree.
So I understand what you're saying, but I'm not sure. First of all, I'm afraid if you tried to make it a one lane and restrict it like that, somebody that lives to the north is just not going to want to do it, and so then you're going to have
enforcement problems.
Well, yeah, and I understand what you're saying, but I would say that Spicy Noodle was there, and they got all of the neighbors from back in there went to it, and they went and got on 98 and came back. And to me, it wouldn't be a problem because it's very easy, a lot easier than going the other way, to come out of their establishment and turn right on 98 and then back up Lakeshore. That wouldn't be a problem at all for me as a customer. And I wouldn't think for any other customer.
All right. Anything additional?
No, I think that pretty much is it. But appreciate your consideration.
Yes, sir.
Oh, can I give you guys just a picture of where my driveway is in relation to where their driveway coming out?
If you have copies for everybody.
I do not.
Then
can I pass it around? Just so you have an idea.
We can see it on here. If you want to pass it around, you're more than welcome to.
I know where it is. Yeah, I used to work at the Eccles Junkyard as a kid.
That's just kind of a point of reference, so you know.
Mr. Stewart, I suggest we make that exhibit 3.
Okay, accepted.
So we can keep it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nobody else signed up. Is there anybody else who wishes to address this item from the public? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. I appreciate your willingness to make that change on commercial deliveries. I think that's a huge help. And just as I say often up here, for the record, for the public, our charge is to determine whether something meets the requirements of the code. And traffic concerns are traffic concerns, and that's something that we can't address. I wish we could. Luckily, we have a developer who's willing to work with us, but the state needs to do some more work out there on Highway 98 to figure it out.
Mr. Chairman, the road's not very. The road isn't adequate. That's not the developer's fault. That's somebody else's fault. But the road, the gentleman expressed a concern about sidewalks. Now, are these blue areas sidewalks that go down towards 98?
Yes, sir.
would y'all be amenable to putting a sidewalk along Lakeshore Drive to the north?
No, of course not.
You'd be,
We would do it, I would do it.
Okay.
I think he had a valid point that if we got the pedestrian and the bicycle traffic off the road onto a sidewalk, that would certainly make it safer. And
The only caveat, if I could add to that, is that that road is extremely steep, so we're not gonna be able to make that sidewalk ADA compliant. So, as long as,
So what I would suggest if we get to a motion is that, this board directs, Public Works to look into that to see if it's feasible
Okay.
within the county right of way.
That makes sense.
yeah, I think it's gotta be some way to, the county could work with you to make a sidewalk happen there on north, and that could, needs a sidewalk there anyways, it just makes sense. This orange or yellow, my colors aren't real good, but over where the old spicy, that's new construction too?
yes, sir, that's a separate
It's a
project.
separate
not part of this
project.
tonight. Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Commissioners? Do we have a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve with the following caveats or stipulations. One, that there'd be no semi or delivery traffic allowed on the North Walton Lakeshore Drive entrance. And B, that the applicant work with Public Works to have a sidewalk along North Walton Lakeshore Drive for pedestrian and other traffic to make the project safer. And the stipulations that had already been in the report from Public Works, from planning.
We have a second?
And I think it's just to be clear about the sidewalks, that that's a recommendation, not a requirement, because it would be contingent on feasibility.
Yeah. And if it can't be done, it can't be done.
We have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Just as an aside, I would like to commend both sides for a reasoned and well thought out discussion. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. That moves us to item number 6 on our agenda tonight, the Forest View Village PUD amendment. And it's a request to approve a final order, and this has been reviewed by Tim Brown, and I'll ask him to introduce it.
Thanks, Mike. Yes, this is it's a major application to amend the Forest View Village PUD. It's 43.24 acres with the future land use of general commercial. You're probably aware that it sits in front of the new elementary school and the county sports complex. What they're proposing is to reduce the approved apartments from 288 units to 283 units. No change with the commercial. It was previously approved for 180,000 square feet. It will remain 180,000 square feet. Reduce the approved lodging units from 127 to 98. Move the multifamily apartment zone, which you can see on the map, slightly north, and allocate trips. The overall number of trips won't change, but allocate trips for 18,000 square feet of office use. Because in the original approval, there was no trips allocated for office. And it's for internal capture more than anything. So they're going to allocate those trips. But the proportionate fair share won't change. The overall number of trips won't change.
What's the purpose of doing that? I'm just curious.
Well, I think it has to do with internal capture, right?
It's just traffic reallocation to allow the 18,000 square feet of commercial with a reduction of the other uses.
Okay.
So unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, this proposed amendment is consistent with the land development code and the comprehensive plan. I'd like to enter my staff report into evidence. I'll take any questions. David is going to address the deviations, because there was deviations approved in the original approval. There was deviations approved in the 2015 amendment, and there was also some deviations that were discussed and not approved. So he's going to go over that.
Okay. Any questions of staff before you step down? All right.
Thanks.
Good evening, Commissioners. I'm David Smith with Interline Engineering and representing MH Forest View LLC. And as Tim mentioned, Forest View was originally approved in 2006. Then it was amended in 2015. And then we are before you this evening requesting another PUD amendment. And we are requesting two things, as Tim mentioned. We're requesting a minor shift on the master plan for the commercial zone and the multifamily zone. This is the master plan, but the multifamily apartment zone and the commercial zone is in yellow. The shift is here. It was approved in 2015 with the line being here. So you can see this is a minor shift to shift it further north. And then this area is also being shifted slightly as well. So that's the first request for the PUD amendment this evening, is that shift to the site plan. The second, as Tim mentioned, is the traffic reallocation to reduce the apartments from the approved 288 apartment units to 283, to also reduce the approved 127 lodging units to 98 lodging units, and then that would transfer to 18,000 square feet of office space as part of the approved commercial. So it's traffic reallocation, minor amendment to the site plan. But as Tim mentioned, I did want to clarify the deviations, which we are not before you this evening requesting any more deviations or any changes to the deviations. I just want to make sure it's clear for everyone what was approved and then what we requested. In 2006, as I mentioned, there were deviations that were approved. And then in 2015, we requested additional deviations. That meeting in 2015 at the Board of County Commissioners, there was a lot of discussion regarding the deviations, and several of the deviations in 2015 were not approved. And that's what I just want to clarify and make sure everything's clear.
Are you asking for those again?
We're asking to keep the same deviations we have, which are the ones that were approved in 2006, the ones that were approved in 2015. We just want to keep the same ones. I just want to clarify what wasn't approved in 2015 and just make sure it's clear. And we want to keep all the other deviations that were approved and that we have.
So you're not asking for anything additional?
Anything additional or anything removed or anything changed. I'm just clarifying the deviations.
Okay.
We're just asking for the two things, the site plan and the traffic reallocation.
Okay.
So I'm going to pass these out. And I blew up the deviations table.
And you'd like for this to be an exhibit? And staff would like the staff report to be an exhibit as well, right?
Accepted.
What this table shows is all of the deviations in Forest View Village PUD. The ones in white are the ones that aren't shaded, are the deviations that were approved as part of the 2006 Forest View Village PUD amendment. Those were retained in 2015, and we're also requesting they be retained today. We're not wanting to change anything. The ones in green are the ones that were requested in the 2015 amendment, and they were approved by the Board of County Commissioners. And we are wanting to retain those and not wanting to change or add, just want to keep those as well. The ones in red are the ones that were discussed at the 2015 meeting and were not approved by the Board of County Commissioners. So we're not requesting those because they weren't approved, and just want to keep what we have and not make any changes to it, but just want to clarify.
That's a good move.
So that's it. That's a summary of the deviations, and just would.
Questions for the applicant?
Not a big fan of deviations, but since you aren't asking for any, we don't have to talk about that. But, so, basically, all this is about two minor changes, one in internal traffic allocations.
Yes, sir.
And the other is moving the designations around just slightly?
That's it. That's why we're here this evening requesting the amendment.
Wow. So, and that's a requirement.
That's it. And again, on the deviations, which we're not adding or changing, I just want to make sure we keep what we have.
I have a question for
Yes, sir.
staff, for Mac. And Mac, I mean, Danny, I think, just expressed my feelings on this. Is there a way to avoid, I know BCC has talked about ways to improve the development process. And when you have something this minor that has to come before us for approval, I just don't see the point in that, to be honest with you. I mean,
and more to the point, I don't see whoever's project, somebody's paying a bunch of money for this, him.
yeah.
And, I mean, we're not, like you said, we're not fighting the original approval.
Not asking for anything additional.
So now that it's approved, why are we having to lick this calf again? I mean, that doesn't make much.
They're asking to change some details on the original approval that was approved by the VCC. I mean, presently, any amendments to PUDs that involve either deviations or any of the entitlements or the master site plan require PUD amendment approved by the VCC upon the recommendation for approval from this board. As part of our first item that we're asking for the Matrix Group to help, we'll certainly include your suggestions about possibly streamlining this process where these are minor changes that don't rise to the level of approving new entitlements.
Right.
We would certainly be in favor of processing those as a less than minor development without having to go to the Planning Commission or the Board of County Commissioners. And actually that is at the heart of what I had originally proposed last fall with regard to changing the thresholds of major and minor developments. That would be part of that. There are certain things that it gets really expensive to change, but our code presently requires it to go all the way to the BCC to get the approval for that. And as I stated last fall, I think in the interest of efficiency of government and reducing the cost of government while still making sure that all of the requirements of the comprehensive plan and the land development code are adhered to by prospective applicants, that there are some changes we can make to improve the process, to reduce the time and the expense that it takes to develop in Walton County, and to, while at the same time ensuring that the public has an opportunity to participate in the process, we have a transparent process, and the requirements of the land development code and the comprehensive plan are adhered to.
I would think that this particular project should be used as a case study for that change.
It would probably serve as a very good example, yes, sir.
I'm not, like I said, I'm not a big fan of deviations, but we're not talking about deviations. We're talking about the same number of trips. And it's just an internal allocation of the same number of trips. And I don't see why, because ultimately that cost is going to be passed on to the consumer. And I don't see that.
Likely, one of the changes that's being made here, and I don't mean to speak for the applicant, and it may not specifically apply to this particular project, but one reason certain small changes in the site plan might be made to move the boundaries of the proposed uses around. It's likely that on a large project like this, subsections of the project are sold to other individual developers. It very well may be that this developer sells the apartment portion to an apartment developer that specializes in apartment development, that might not specialize in the rest of the project. Sometimes the developer is going to do the entire development himself. Sometimes he's coming in and saying, I'll sell you this entitlement and this piece of land inside my development if you'll develop in accordance with what the BCC previously approved. And it's likely that these small changes in area within the PUD support those kinds of things.
But it doesn't change, it's not a change to the project substantially.
Not a change to the project, but it explains why they want to make
Right.
small boundary changes between the uses.
I think that explains perfectly what Danny's saying, it's just, that's not.
I understand exactly what you're saying. I'm just saying, it's already been approved, so why does he have to go to the expense?
Right now, it's an amendment to the planned unit development approved by the BCC, and the code says that any amendments to that PUD require it follow the same path as the original approval. But we'll certainly take your recommendations and suggestions as they're offered in good faith, and we'll include those with the information we provided to Matrix in the context of trying to reduce the cost of government.
Thank you.
Amen.
Okay, anybody have any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Thank
We had
you.
nobody from the public sign up to speak. Is there anybody who wishes to address this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to item number 7, the Palmetto Trace Townhomes, a request to approve by final order, and this one has also been reviewed by Tim Brown, and he will introduce this project.
Palmetto Trace?
Palmetto Trace Townhomes, yes. This is a major development application requesting approval to develop 8 townhomes on 1.16 acres with the future land use of neighborhood infill. It's located on the west side of Don Bishop Road, north of Highway 98 West, and south of Hackberry Way. This does have a proportionate fair share contribution requirement of $22,650, as Highway 98 West does not have available capacity. And there's some conditions related to fire apparatus, permitting, and then the proportionate fair share contribution. So unless other evidence is presented to the contrary, this project is consistent with the Land Development Code and the comprehensive plan. I'd like to enter my staff report as evidence, and I'll take any questions the board may have.
Commissioners?
Is it, am I reading this right, that the allowed density is 4 units an acre and this is 6.9 units an acre?
Infill allows up to 8. It's based on the surrounding neighborhood, the density.
Well, where it's the project analysis?
Page 5 of 8.
Page 5. It says density allowed up to 4 units an acre, provided 6.90 units an acre.
Yes, that should say 8. That's an error. That
So
should
that's a
say
misprint.
up to 8 units per acre.
Okay.
That's a pretty big.
Yes, pretty big difference.
Yeah.
I'll correct that.
I was fixing to have a stroke amongst y'all.
We don't need Danny stroking out on us, so you can get that fixed next time, okay?
Yes.
I'm not sure how good Tom is at CPRs.
I'm not sure I wanted to do it.
I think we have a defibrillator out front.
Okay.
The battery was checked today.
Any other questions for staff?
No,
Thank you, Tim. You're up.
All right.
You sure you're ready for this?
Never ready.
You hope you're ready.
Sure. Ed Stanford with Core Engineering Consulting on behalf of Palmetto Beach and representing this 8 townhome complex that's located on Don Bishop. Across the street we've got 4-plex apartments. To the west of us we have 16 townhome units, and to the south of us we have a vacant VMU parcel. To the southeast of us we have a commercial piece. So generally development is nice when it takes off the commercial corridors and starts from a higher density, sort of a buffer transition to the lower density. It's hard to do in Walton County a lot of times because we've developed in such a linear fashion, but we feel like we fit right within the context of the surrounding neighborhoods. There is a single-family residential neighborhood that sort of wraps around this property, and we back up to 1.5 of those units. These are 2-story homes, and we've tried to buffer to the greatest deal possible. We're 48 feet off of the townhomes. We're 47 feet off of the residential to the north, and we're 46 feet off of the right-of-way to the south. And to the east on the right-of-way, we're 36 or 37 feet. So kind of try to centrally locate this thing and not be too close to our neighbors that are single-family, and also the single-story townhomes to the west. So not a whole lot to this. It's above-grade retention. We build up the site, about 1.5 feet or 2 feet to allow for drainage. We have a shallow stormwater system, easier to maintain. Fairly simple, straightforward project. But if you have any questions.
Stormwater is being maintained on site?
Oh yeah, on site. We're adjacent to a mosquito control ditch or drainage ditch that we'll pop off into, and we have the grade to do that.
How many parking places per unit?
On this one, we've got a garage, which will have 1, and then we've got 2 additional. So we've got 3 total. And these are 3-bedroom, 2-bath townhomes.
1 garage, 2 driveway.
Correct.
Y'all, I'm gonna recuse myself on this one because I think the applicant is a client of mine. I'm just digging through this real quick, and I think they are, so I'm gonna recuse
Don't you
myself.
know what your business people are doing there, attorney?
Well, when I see the name and I recognize the name of somebody who signed my check.
We appreciate you being so diligent.
But I can answer any other questions that y'all might have.
Anybody else have any questions for the applicant? Thank you for now. We have a couple people who have signed up to speak. Belinda Martinez.
My name's Belinda Martinez, Martinez. I have been sworn in. My main concern is I'm the one that actually butts up to the north side of the property. I have a 6-foot fence. My backyard is right there. I don't like the fact of having 2-story townhomes right there in my backyard where they can look. I feel my privacy is being, will be invaded by that. There's a 10-foot setback between the properties at my fence. I understand that. If there's any way they could keep it natural and not disturb any of the natural trees that are there, that would definitely help. I feel if they cut all of that down, then it's going to be straight. I'm going to look straight into anyone that has a 2nd-story window or a balcony possibly up here. I have 2 children. I'm a single mother. And again, my privacy is the biggest main issue. I have no problem with the development there at all. I think it's great that it's actually coming off Don Bishop and not the Winston Manor. But again, it's strictly my privacy and my neighbor's privacy.
You understand something can be built there, right?
I do apologize. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, I do. I do understand that.
Yeah.
If they would just work,
I understand.
to ensure that.
I think they'll probably work with you as much as possible.
That is just strictly my main concern. I did have a question about the drainage. You said you were building it up, building the property up?
Yes, it's fairly low.
Okay.
So we're building it up so we can get the
Okay.
separation between the water table and the bottom of the retention pond.
Okay, great. Just to make sure it's not going to drain into my yard.
No, we're going to drainage to the ditch to the east of us, which is the natural
Right.
water course.
Okay.
Something to note is one of the guys who is part of this project is he owns a landscaping business. Now, we are doing some grading on that north side, backing up to her property, but I'm pretty sure he's got some ends with landscaping materials, and for the record, we will beef up that northern side.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be a major cost for him. We're also 48 feet off the, and we're only required to have 10 or 15
Correct.
feet. So we've tried to be aware of these things and pull this to the center of the property and give you an additional buffer, if you will. So I don't have a problem stating that he's going to put in additional things if we take them out. We'll try to keep as much as we can.
If there's, yes, there's some really, big foliage with the trees, and that would definitely help
Sure.
Thank you.
with that. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
And that setback's 48 feet?
Yeah, that's, hold on a second. Yeah, on the north, it's 47.5 feet to her property.
Steve Stewart? That's a mighty fine last name you got there.
Yes,
sir.
indeed, sir, but I'm not the orator that you are.
I
I'm
don't know
Steve
about
Stewart,
that.
Stewart, and I have been sworn in. We have a couple of concerns about this development. The Winston Manor townhomes, which are to the west. We were curious as to the plan for the stormwater. Is it a 25-year, 100-year? I mean, we've been seeing some 1,000-year storms go on here lately in our world.
Those are kind of hard to plan for. Is it developer? What's your all's stormwater?
I can't remember if we had to do, I think we had to do 100-year on this because we're adjacent to that ditch I'm looking for right now. But, I understand their concerns, and that's why we are heading everything away from them and towards the county right-of-way, really.
Okay, so it seems that the previous submission had a retention pond, and this has no retention pond. We're in a very low area to the west of them. We have monster flooding concerns as it stands now with just a small rain. We find our streets underwater. They recently repaved Saddlebrook, which is to our west and north, and that hasn't helped that at all. We used to have a northwestern stream that would take water out of the property and through Saddlebrook. However, when they built the one home back behind Unit 4 in the Winston Manor development, they were allowed to do infill at that drainage, so there's no drainage, so there's absolutely no water, nowhere for the water to go there. And if they're talking about raising a foot and a half, we just want to know what's going to happen on that 1.18 acres that they're developing on. And most of that is concrete and home and asphalt. We're wondering where that water is going to shed to and at what rate. We're very concerned that we're going to find ourselves underwater all the time with this going on. We do have a drain field easement, 30-foot drain field easement that they're aware of. It's wooded, and that drinks a lot of that water. We don't know what's going to happen, how much of that they're going to take down or leave. And we're also concerned about boundary lighting and how it's going to affect the homes in Winston Manor, as well as any kind of what kind of landscaping, boundary landscape is going to happen. I think that the biggest thing is the water, and as long as they understand that they can't build on the drain field easement, that's just about it.
Okay. We'll let him address all that stuff, okay?
Sure. Just to clarify, we do have retention, and this is their 30-foot drain field easement that we don't touch, okay? We grade right at their line. We have a very small swale here. Majority of our retention is on the north and south of this. These are swales that feed into our retention that wraps around the corners of the building, and then we pop into this portion of the right-of-way. They may have current flooding issues, but again, we're 30 feet to our grading, and we're 40 8.76 feet to our home. So we try to keep everything away from them and pull it, towards the right of way. We even have 6 additional parking spaces, which is unique in a small project like this. So, and speaking to the lighting issues, the only lighting we're going to have is here along this road, which will buffer these folks, to the north, maybe not to the south, because there's no one there. And we're also, again, 48 feet off their property line. So these are not 4 or 5 story homes, they're 2-story homes. Will you be able to see them? Yes, but I've got a 2-story neighbor next to me, and, I see them, they're 15 feet away from me. So, we've done our best to keep everything centrally focused and away from our neighbors. As far as historical flooding goes, there was problems before we got here, and we're trying to take everything away from them that we can and push it towards the natural water courses. So I'm not really sure how to address that. I know those are tough situations when we run into them. I just don't know.
I think what's important, the only thing you can do is address what you have.
That's correct. We've got kind of requirements for that, and we are adjacent to.
And it sounds like they've done everything they can to make sure that water don't come your way. It goes the other way. So. Anybody, let me see. Don Ratcliffe.
Hi, Dawn Ratcliffe, RATCLIFFE, and I was sworn in. My concern, the easement that Winston Manor has, is there a legal recourse that it does not get cleared, or are they allowed to clear that easement, that 30-foot easement?
Yeah, we're not touching it.
Okay.
Yeah, we're not grading in it or building over it.
Okay. If they do clear it by mistake, is there any recourse on that?
You can
Because
call
to
the
beg for forgiveness afterwards?
We can't give you legal advice.
That's a
Okay.
civil issue,
Okay.
and you could get an attorney and call the
Okay,
owner.
that's fine. I wanted to know whether they're allowed to clear it or not to clear it, but if they're not gonna clear it and they've done the drainage going the other way, then, that's
Well,
fine with me. My concern was, I received this, I didn't actually even receive this plat, a neighbor of mine actually forwarded this to me, because the first, proposal in February that we went to a meeting to was totally different to this proposal, where they actually had a stormwater runoff, and they didn't on this proposal, and that's what's the concern again.
But we do have stormwater.
I know, but the first one that we went to a meeting to in February is
Yes.
totally different to this proposal.
Well, and part of that was the reason why is we worked through some items with the county, and that backed everybody up to you. And instead of doing that, we turned them sideways, and we only impact one person, and we're 50 feet away from them. So, I guess we could go back to that.
Well, no, that's fine, but I just didn't,
But the numbers have not changed.
Right.
The number
Yeah,
of units
but,
and the size and
again,
all that.
The concern was, one minute we had a stormwater runoff and then we didn't, but you're now saying it's running into that main ditch out front.
The county would not allow us to
Okay.
come to this meeting without addressing those things specifically.
I just had to go by the first one I saw, and then
Understand.
this one was sent to me.
The question's been
earlier.
answered then, right?
Okay, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Nobody else assigned, anybody else who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public comments. Commissioners?
They seem to address all the problems.
Just to make sure, no building in their easement, and the setbacks are 48 feet.
They're whatever, it's
Yeah.
48 and change and 47 and
Yeah.
change. Yeah, they're not gonna change.
That's
Nice
commendable.
On the north side.
Excuse me?
A buffer on the north side for the lady behind you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
We will increase the buffer beyond what is shown
Looks
here.
like a very responsible development.
Yeah.
Motion to
That's
approve.
good.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is my last one.
Thank you, Commissioners. That brings us to our last item, the O'Neill right-of-way
Mr.
abandonment.
Carpenter, before we start on that, we're gonna take about 10 minutes, okay?
Okay,
This one's
sure.
probably gonna last a little bit.
This one go last time. You got 10 minutes. Chill out.
This is gonna last 10 minutes, is that what you said? Yeah, you didn't find you got a climb. You go home.
Now, what you say you got lost I got from the University of Miami, but I spent my last year out there.
Oh, okay. You was a scholar.
Is Mike here?
That's right. I think I know
He's in the back. His mama called that.
That's right.
This is number 8. We're back in session, Mr. Carpenter. You're up.
Thanks, sir. This is number 8, the O'Neill right-of-way abandonment. That's a request to approve by resolution. This project has been reviewed by Vivian Schammel. I would like to go on record in saying that the planning department does not support any abandonment of public right-of-way or public easements, just as a standard practice, and Public Works takes the same position. That's not to cast aspersion on the application, it's just that that's our position. Vivian Schammel has reviewed this and she will introduce it.
Thank you.
Good evening. This is a petition for abandonment application submitted by Emerald Coast Associates requesting approval for a right-of-way abandonment in Inlet Beach on .43 acres with a future land use of neighborhood infill. Project is located on Walton Magnolia Lane. This is a request to abandon a portion of an existing easement on the southern side of the property. The only comments that we have are from the environmental department. There would be some additional conditions that they would have regarding if the abandonment is approved. Staff has nothing further than that, except for we do have some correspondence of opposition and people present here, and that is all that really staff has.
Any questions, staff? This is looking at this map, trying to figure. This is basically beachfront property, right?
Yes.
And does this exist wholly in Walton County?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Barely.
Yeah, right on the line.
Barely, but it is. It's Walton
Yeah,
County.
just barely.
Okay. Is there anything that the county has down there now, or anything?
Yes, sir. On the remaining portion of the government patent easement that is parallel to the eastern boundary of the county, immediately to the east of Mr. O'Neill's lot, there is a TDC constructed, actually using money provided by the Loop and Beach Development as part of their approval for their PUD a few years ago. But it's a neighborhood beach access. Not a regional beach access, but a neighborhood beach access.
It's not public access?
It is a public access, but it's intended to be a neighborhood, a small scale access.
Is that maintained by TDC?
That is maintained by TDC, and it provides access to the public beach.
Yeah, the neighborhood beach accesses usually don't have any parking or restrooms
Right.
associated.
Okay. So, if they had to access that to do repairs to that walkway or do anything with that access point, how would this impact that?
I'm not sure that that would. The proposed abandonment does not impact that north-south easement, only the east-west easement at the southern boundary of their particular lot. We do have an objection letter from the property owner immediately to the south, which is part of the Lupin Beach PUD, where a plat has been approved, but not, or excuse me, where the project has been approved, but the plat has not yet been recorded. At present, this could possibly provide access to the easternmost lot if that project does not occur, but that's the nature of the objection letter that we have.
So there's lots to the south of this?
Yes, sir. This is not beachfront. There's nothing built south of it, so it appears to be beachfront at present, but there is a PUD that has been approved by the county that has not yet been built, and I think is still involved in some litigation, and that's the reason it hasn't been built yet. But yes, there are private lots south of this particular development.
Any other questions for staff? Okay. The applicant?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Tom Tomasello, attorney from Tallahassee, Florida. My last name is spelled Tomasello. And with me tonight is our engineer, Dean Burgess. Mr. O'Neill is in the back, and my co-counsel, Stephen Assini, also from Tallahassee. Okay. Mr. Burgess and Mr. O'Neill will also offer some testimony. We're here seeking...
Hold on. Is that Haynes?
Haynes O'Neill.
From Birmingham?
Yes.
Need another form?
Well, I better ask the question.
Okay.
Do you mind if I ask the applicant specifically a question as to whether or not I've represented him in the past? Okay. Mr. O'Neill, my name is John Roberts. I'm an attorney here. Previously, I was an attorney in Birmingham, Alabama. Have you ever employed Oak Tree Deacons, Nash Smoking Stewart as a law firm?
I don't remember it.
Okay, what about Lane Simpson Robinson in Somerville?
Again, I don't remember.
I represented.
Companies and I don't remember all of them.
Okay, well, let me explain the only reason I asked this question. I represented Drummond, Vulcan, and I don't know for certain I represented Mr. O'Neill's, I believe it's a transportation company. Is it a rail company?
Yes, rail.
And so that you no longer represent.
No, and haven't for at least 13 years.
Okay.
But
that
as long as I've disclosed it, you don't have a problem with it, I'm here for the duration.
As long as you don't have a present relationship with him, that shouldn't cause a problem.
Mr. O'Neill, you don't remember me, and you don't have any problem with me sitting up here, do you?
No, I don't.
Okay, all right, well, as long as I've disclosed it.
All these attorneys in the room.
Well,
We borrow some money?
it's the ethics.
He's trying to stay out of jail.
Mr. O'Neill owns a home at 238 Walton Magnolia Lane. It's the most eastern parcel of land in Walton County along the beach. He is not a beachfront property owner. He's just north of property that is part of the Lupin Beach PUD, which has been approved by the County Commission. There's no ongoing litigation between Mr. O'Neill and EBSCO at this point.
Okay.
There was a statement that there is ongoing litigation, and that's not correct. We're going to give you more detailed information on the location and everything, but I just wanted to give you a sense of Mr. O'Neill's property is here next to a boardwalk that is owned and maintained by Walton County. The boardwalk was built within a right-of-way on his property, and Mr. O'Neill will give you some testimony about what that's meant to his life since the boardwalk was constructed. The right-of-way was created by the federal government under the Small Tracts Act. The first patents on the government plat were granted way back in 1955. So the right-of-way has been in effect on this property for more than 60 years. It's never been used by the county. It's never been maintained by the county. And under county policies and procedures, if your land is encumbered by a right-of-way that is not used or maintained by the county, then you have a right to come before the county through the Planning Commission, the County Commission, and ask that the county relinquish its public interest in the right-of-way. And I say public interest because private parties adjoining the easement have no right to use that easement as access, private access to their properties. This is the public easement. What we're asking the county to do is to relinquish whatever interest it has in the easement for public purposes. We're not asking you to be involved in a dispute over whether a private person has the right to use that right away or not. Simply, we're asking the county, since you're not using it, you're not maintaining it, and it has no practical purpose, as our engineer will explain to you, then we're asking that you just release your interest in it. If there's a dispute later on between us and EBSCO over their right, any rights they may have, which we say are none, and we'll explain why they have no right to use it, then that would be litigation between private parties. It would not involve the county. It's conceivable that an adjoining property owner could have a right to use a federal government right away, but it can only use it if they show necessity. And the burden is on them to show the necessity. And they have ample access through the unified acres of land that they've owned for several years and that have been owned as a single parcel for more than 25 years. And nobody owning any of those lands has ever asked for access to Mr. O'Neill's property. His easement runs east and west at the southern end of his property. Everybody in the neighborhood has utilities. Everybody in the neighborhood has access to Walton Magnolia Lane. And so we're saying that even in the future, there just doesn't seem to be any reason for the county not to unencumber our land, because the right-of-way is going to serve no purpose for the county. I'd like to have our engineer, Dean Burgess, now show you information on the location of the right-of-way. And as we go along, at some point, we're going to be handing exhibits. I guess we would give it to the county attorney, and then we brought copies so that each of you would have it while we go through the information that's on the attachment. So let's start with explaining where the easement is.
Just to orient you a bit to the property, I think we already have a general idea of where it is, but in the second page of your staff report, there's a really good aerial that points out the parcel, where it sits in space. If y'all cared to look at that, that'll give you an idea of where it is at the very eastern end of Walton Magnolia Lane. To orient you a bit to the easement that we're asking to abandon, if I may approach the board. It is this southern shaded easement here. This is the eastern boardwalk easement that has been referenced in conversations tonight. We're not asking for any abandonment of that. And actually, where these easements overlap, we have stopped short to maintain that 33-foot easement along the eastern side. So it's just this southern portion that abuts this southern property line that we're asking to abandon. Just to show you how that fits together with the government patents, we traced out the government patent easements. And this is a map showing in blue where the original government patent easements were. This is our lot here. It's half of lot 246 here. It's the eastern half of that lot. And here, hatched in red, is what we're asking to abandon. The EBSCO property consists of these lots, this L-shaped area here. And they have access, to their property through this compilation of lots. The government patents are very clear regarding the right-of-ways and what they're intended for. What I've done is assemble a packet of all of those easements that I'd like to go ahead and hand out. I don't want to belabor going through the packet, but I'll point out a few. Sure.
Yeah, thank you. And so I would suggest we make this composite exhibit 1.
That'd be fine.
And I'm sorry, I neglected to ask staff, does staff want to make their report an exhibit as well?
Yes, please.
So actually, let's do staff report as exhibit 1, and then exhibit 2. Do you guys have any objection to the staff report being introduced into evidence?
No, ma'am. We've read the staff report and don't have any objections to it.
Accepted.
What I've done is in this packet, these are the actual patent easements that we obtained, and they go hand in hand with this map. They are what we decided to prepare this map. And what these documents do is outline in purple that highlighted for each lot, the associated easement is highlighted in purple. And whenever you run all of those easements out, that are called out in purple, you end up with these blue easements. So that kind of gives you a configuration of it.
Dean, let me ask you just, while you got that there. So you're talking about just that portion right there?
Correct.
Is this the old Salford Beach? Is that what it is?
I don't know about Salford Beach. Not familiar with that.
It's a very southern portion of the property where we're using this. And this property abuts the Lisbon Beach property.
So it doesn't, what you're talking about, if I'm seeing it right, you're not going all the way over to where that boardwalk is.
That's correct.
You're still leaving a 33-foot wide easement where the boardwalk goes down.
Correct. Where the southern easement and eastern easement intersect, we're leaving that eastern portion of the southern easement.
To maintain that 33 feet?
Correct.
Okay.
Why is it narrower, the blue is narrower there at that eastern end?
For some reason, they did not carry through the northern easement on lot 259. If you go to the patent easements to lot 259, there's not an easement.
Somebody had a good attorney.
I guess so.
Can anything be, if it's granted, could anything be built on that? On that property, on that easement? If it was granted?
In the area that we're
Yes,
abandoning?
yes.
The staff report indicates that there's environmental concerns, and I agree that there are. There's
So nothing.
There's it's very possibly in the coastal protection zone. No, and the intent of this abandonment is not so they can turn around and build something in it. The intent is so that he can remove the encumbrance from his property.
Would that be like a quiet title?
No, it would just be the county releasing whatever interest it has in the right of way.
I think what?
The county would abandon their interest in the right of way. It wouldn't mean, it would eliminate an encumbrance on the property on a 33-foot right of way.
You would just be buffered for that property?
Quiet title is usually when there's a gap or overlap, and it's to settle that dispute.
Right.
He currently has fee simple title to this property, there's just an easement over top of it.
Let me ask you a
Okay.
question.
All right.
I may be out of order, but it looks to me, just from the appearance of where that piece is, it looks like someone's trying to prevent someone from saying they have an access to get over to that boardwalk to get down to the beach. That's what, you understand? If there's an easement going the other way, and people can claim a right to walk down there to get to that boardwalk.
I can address that. The right of way is created by the federal government under the small tracts
Right.
are exclusively for only two purposes.
I understand that, but somebody's probably gonna make an argument that when they develop that over there, people are gonna wanna walk across there to get to the boardwalk.
Or they want to put their utilities in there.
Excuse me?
You mean
Yeah.
from Lupin Beach?
Yeah.
No, that Lupin Beach PUD provides dune crossovers for each of the houses that are adjacent to the shoreline.
Okay.
So each home would have a boardwalk to either share or use exclusively. So they would not.
They wouldn't have a need to get over there.
Right, and then on top of that, they also have a boardwalk in the project that provides beach access to the other homes that are not on the beach.
Okay.
So I don't think anybody from Lupin Beach is gonna be using the county boardwalk.
Where's the Lupin Beach properties?
Lupin Beach starts at this lot and goes to the west to lot 249 here.
So those two lots to the south, those two lots,
But these lots are where they're gonna have a beachfront homes.
those are Lupin Beach, those are the Lupin.
Right, and then Lupin Beach goes up like this.
So the two purposes are utilities and vehicle roadway. Well, it doesn't, if that easternmost lot's developed, they're gonna have to have that right of way.
No, they have access through their own property. And
But
that's the.
But then you're cutting, if there's already an easement there, you're cutting into their lot size. And I'm not saying that
The
this
easement
is,
cuts into everybody's lot.
but there's already an existing easement.
No,
If the utilities for this, yeah, but there's that easternmost lot, if it were ever developed, you gotta have some place to put the utility. You can't go to the east because there's a county, neighborhood access. So the utilities would have to come to that lot somehow.
They would have to, okay, here, let me help you with that. And I understand your point, and that's a good question. This is the Lupin Beach PUD that's been approved by the county. This dark area here is a roadway with a turnaround. And underneath the roadway is their stormwater and their electric service. So all of these lots can be served on a easement area that Lupin Beach is gonna have to create. They don't need access through here, they have access to Walton Magnolia Lane directly.
But there's lots to the south of these parcels that are not showing on your map.
This is the Gulf of Mexico. These are the
Yeah.
lands.
And where's the client's house?
Ours is right here. Right here. To the north of where Lupin Beach
So,
will be developed.
so where's
the easement we're looking at?
It's the buffer in between their lot and
Right.
these homes that are being built out here.
That white area?
It would be a portion of this easement here.
Okay. I see what they're saying.
They have, through these rights of way, Lupin Beach has no right to gain access to its property. None. So this easement,
Yeah, that clears
this
it up.
easement can't and never was meant to provide access to the lots to the south. And a private landowner can't come in and say, we want to use this federal right of way to gain access to our property. They can, in some cases, they can demonstrate under necessity that there is no other way to access this property than except to go through a federal right of way. They don't have that problem because they own all of this land along Walton Magnolia Lane. And they've already proposed an easement on their own property that would serve access to every part of the land and their property. Now, what in their comments, they said to the county, well, we wouldn't object if you hold off the abandonment until we file our plat. And our answer to that is irrelevant whether they file their plat or not. They own all of this land. It would be illegal for them to sell this lot to somebody without providing access. And they can't, so they own all this acreage, and they want to continue to encumber my client's property to build a road in front of his home to gain access when they own all this land and have all that opportunity to provide access to their own property. They can't do that. And there's no reason for you to get into that fight, because we're only asking you to relinquish the county's interest in it. If EBSCO thinks they have a right to use this right of way for their own personal use, I say, fine, come and try. They're not going to succeed. And they're twisting this around to make you think that if you grant this right of way abandonment, that they're going to lose access to this lot. The only way they'll lose access to that lot ever is to sell that lot without providing the buyer with access. And they have land to provide access to every single lot on their property. It's disingenuous of them to come in and say, we don't want to encumber our own property to have access to our own property. We want to encumber Mr. O'Neill's property. That is just wrong.
Let me ask the salient question that I feel like maybe needs to be asked. This doesn't have anything to do with Lupine, right?
Okay.
No, I'm asking. This doesn't have anything. The right of way that you're asking us to abandon or to approve the abandonment doesn't have anything to do with Lupine, right?
It has nothing to do.
All right. So
it has to do with our own property.
All right. So we cannot address that. There was some form of litigation between Lupine and this occupant at some point, but that doesn't have anything to do with the
right. That's what I'm saying. It's irrelevant. It has nothing to do with our request. It's a simple matter of that Lupine is saying they have a right to access this lot through our property instead of going through their own property. And we're saying
Has all the litigation been settled?
No.
Because
there's no litigation.
There's no litigation.
But there has been in the past. So
we litigated over the county's approval of the Lupine Beach PUD.
Okay, all right.
That's it.
Okay.
Now, I can't tell you there won't be future litigation.
Well,
there will be if Lupine ever thinks they're going to build a road through my client's property. Let me show you a picture of what's left.
I have to talk myself out of work over here.
This is standing on the boardwalk, looking to the west. And our client's house is there, and there's a fence, which is his property line. And you have a huge dune system.
Nothing can be done there anyway.
Do you need to see these first?
And the county.
I'm sorry to interrupt.
We have a picture.
Yeah, we have the package.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we already got it. Yeah, we have that package.
And the county staff has already told you that they're not going to let any development in there. So the Lupine is coming in and saying, well, we want to build a road on that property to get access instead of building to the road in an area where the county has already said there can be no construction. We just want a clean, elimination of the right of way, so it's no longer affecting our property. And the basis for that is that the county doesn't use it, doesn't maintain it, and it has no public purpose. Everybody who lives in this area has access to the beach through the boardwalk, which is built on my client's property, by the way. And everybody there has utilities, and all of the lots to the south can be given access and utilities through Lupine Beach's own property. They're not asking for utilities, they're just saying they need it for access. They've already shown that they have a provision for access to all of their lots, and all they have to do, if they don't record their plat, is create an easement on their property that makes every lot have access to Magnolia Walton Lane.
But why are we still talking about Lupine?
Because they filed an objection to our request.
Okay, but it doesn't have anything to do with your request other than the fact that's on your piece of property, borders their property to the south.
Right.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to show you, and maybe I'm not doing a very good job of it, is they claim that they need this road so they can build a road next to the boardwalk that the county has already constructed, cross over the roadway into their property.
Well, this has not been platted, correct? They've had approval, but no platting.
They
Is
have
that-
not filed the plat.
What would be the harm in waiting until that's done for this because are we gonna drag the county into a lawsuit that would not be a party of now?
I think that may be the feeling I'm having is this.
Why
feels like we're
would we
settling
put the
issues
county in a
and so-
position to be involved in a lawsuit that the county's not, because I can see, and I'm certainly no lawyer, but I can see.
You're looking at me then.
You are, you tell me if I'm right.
Maybe.
I can see that the other party could sue over this and say that the county illegally abandoned. I'm not saying they would prevail, I'm just saying, couldn't we wait a little bit and then see how this is gonna go before we drag the county into something? That's all we need is another lawsuit.
We're not dragging the county into anything. We're only asking the county to give up its interest. They can't sue you for giving up your interest. If it doesn't affect their interest, then it doesn't. We don't know when they're gonna file that plat.
Well,
And meanwhile, we have an encumbrance on our property in an area that the county doesn't intend to use or maintain.
but I'm still not understanding why at this juncture, because that encumbrance has been on this property for 60+ years.
Right.
How's it gonna harm anything to let it keep rocking?
Because two answers. One, we don't know what they'll ever file the plat. They may abandon the whole development.
Then what would be the point of abandonment?
But then we have to come back. That costs money, as you pointed out. There's a lot of money being spent in this room right now. And the only reason we're here spending the money before you is because we have an objection to our request by an entity that we've been in litigation with in the past. How can they sue you for releasing your interest?
But what's,
I think I understand Mr. Gladwell's point, and maybe I can put a nail on the head, lawyer. What he's saying is, why do we need to get involved? The county's already told us they don't favor abandonments right away. And I hear what you're saying. What I also get the sense is that perhaps we're stepping into something that involves two private parties, and you're asking the county to give up their interest to clear up whether or not the county has a reservation on that interest. Is that?
I think
is that fair?
The very simple solution is to make the connection and the realization that they will never use.
Well, I don't want to talk about that. But let me finish. I don't want to talk about that because they is amorphous. We're talking about you and the county. We're talking about your applicant and the county. You're asking the applicant or you're asking the county to give up a right of way. But what I hear is, and I don't want to take anything away from you, but what I hear is perhaps there's a strategy here that says that if we can get rid of this issue, it would weaken the position of a party that you might be in litigation with down the road. And I'm not sure that the county should take that.
I can, that's
Okay, but do you understand where I might, I'm no
being
judge.
totally frank with you.
I'm no judge.
There's nothing in the background.
Okay.
We did the simple request, after the county built the boardwalk on our property, and we suffered the consequences of it, and we saw the other properties sitting there and nothing happened, we said, we paid our dues. Our property is providing beach access to the entire neighborhood. All we want is this other shadow on our ownership of the property be released, and we have the legitimate reason of asking for it, and that is that you're never going to use it.
but there again, it sounds like now that explanation sounds like you're trying to stop the county from building, or, I mean, why, as you said, there's a lot of money being spent in this room right now, and I don't understand why we're spending it if there's not a reason. And what you're saying, that doesn't make a common sense reason
The
to me.
client doesn't want road or a boardwalk in his back porch. He already has a situation where people walking down the boardwalk are throwing bottles and breaking his windows. It's an unsightly boardwalk. It completely blocks his view of the Gulf to the east. He's paid his dues. It hasn't separated all that. And then I'm going to have my engineer explain to you why they could never get access to their property through that side anyways for technical reasons. Okay? So,
Dean, come up and tell us.
Currently, in order to access lot 259,
Not that.
From Walton Magnolia Lane down this easement already
His
has
project is the combination of these lots of record.
the county boardwalk in it. It's only 33 foot easement.
Yes.
It's already got county boardwalk in it. And if you take out the improvements that are already in that easement, there's 12 3/4 foot of
That's
width
lot is
left
sold
to
as
the
well.
road.
Let's go back to
That's
Somebody
not even a
owns
one-lane
those
road.
lots.
That's-
It won't
They're on
provide fire
access.
That's
to the
including
roadway.
the improvements that are currently
Yeah.
in the easement.
You'd have to take the
That's
current
right.
improvements out to do
All the
anything.
improvements have to come out of the easement in order to utilize that. And there's a secondary, I think for life safety reasons, this access would work. And the likelihood of county approving that boardwalk, they've got an obligation here to keep that boardwalk there. And if it stays, you're not gonna get eroded because that will meet life safety requirements.
Right.
I don't really care if they get about, because we're not even talking about them. We're talking about, but that's a county maintained, structure right there. That
It is.
boardwalk is county.
That's right.
So I'm concerned about going against the interest of the county. I have no, could the county use that easement for anything else? For a county purpose?
only for a roadway or utilities. And we're saying that you don't, it's inconceivable that there could be a roadway or utility purpose for that little piece of the right of way.
Well, we currently have a beach access in the same exact type of easement.
Well, you wouldn't if we knew about it. There would have been litigation over that, but we missed it.
Well, we do have quite a number of beach accesses in those easements throughout the county.
Right, and it's all through our property.
But there's
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Could I suggest that testimony be presented from the podium so we can pick it up on the audio for the benefit of
okay.
those taking the minutes?
Thank you.
I will also, I have to object to Mr. Tomasella's suggestion that they did not know about this boardwalk. It was a condition of approval of the Lupin Beach PUD and the abandonments of the east-west easements along that run horizontally through the Lupin Beach property that do not provide access to the public roadway. But that boardwalk was a condition of approval of that project, and it was widely heard, and Mr. Tomasella was here.
Okay. Boardwalk's there, so that's kind of a moot point, but.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We don't need to argue about something that's already there. If you want to sue the county, you can, but the boardwalk's existing.
We certainly do not intend to sue the county. Over
I understand, I'm just saying.
In fact, we went out of our way to make sure that our request didn't interfere with the 33-foot right-of-way that the board
Right,
wants.
and I can see that.
No further comments.
Then you done for now?
One other minor point that I wanted to bring up is, on the difficulties in designing a roadway to access 259. Furthermore, it would produce a one-block lot, if you will, which Walton County's code precludes, doesn't allow one-lot blocks. I think access to this, Mr. Tomasello summarized it pretty well. Lupin Beach has access and can easily provide right an easement to that lot.
Is it fair to say that what you mean is it's a functional possibility.
Yes.
To create that road.
To create that road,
Okay.
right.
I understand that.
Physically can't be.
Yeah, I can
We
see
wouldn't be
that.
able to stay within the confines of our code to create that road.
Correct.
Okay, I understand that. Thank you, Dean.
Are y'all done for now? Or?
I believe we're done.
Okay. We do have a few people who have signed up to speak, so we'll open public comments. Eddie Foster.
Good evening. Eddie Foster, F-O-S-T-E-R, with EBSCO.
Were you sworn in, sir?
Yes, I'm sorry, I did swear in. Understand where the whole reason for this issue tonight was our objection. Our objection is actually kind of simple. The easement is there to provide access to those lots, as they told y'all. The lots are owned by EBSCO, but they're not assembled yet. Until Lupin Beach is completed and platted, those lots are individual, standalone, which means those the 4, 5, and 6, 4, 5, and 6 have to have access down that easement. The other lots are all independent of that. Once we plat, all the easements go away. Our PUD does not allow us to abandon the easements until we plat, the ones that are on our property. The boardwalk, a couple of questions on that. That was a TDC numbered boardwalk location that hadn't been funded yet. Part of our PUD was for us to fund it. It is in a 15-foot wide area. There's still 18 feet available. Looking at the road that could possibly go in there, and we're not saying it would, we don't want to. We'd rather get the Lupin Beach project done. We're still having some issues. Yes, litigation's over for now. We don't know if it's going to be any further. The access road, the county's comp plan land development code does not define the widths for a driveway. So we could have a driveway if we had to access those 3 lots. The biggest issue here, and it's not, we don't know how this happened either. Dean, I think, said this. Lot 6 does not have an east-west easement on it, on our property. So the only way to get to lots 4 and 5 is through that easement. So that's all we're asking. We have no question, no qualms waiting till after we're platted for this to be abandoned, because all of them will be abandoned together.
Okay. Very good.
And I'm still ill right now, not from this, I've been sick.
Okay. Tom Tomaselli, that's the attorney. Haynes O'Neill, that's the property. Okay. Steve Asidia.
I'm also an attorney for Mr. O'Neill, and I just want to say, in response to the EBSCO representative, what he's suggesting to you is that there needs to be, what they want is the ability to build a road next to Mr. O'Neill's home. He's suggesting that they not use any of their property to create an easement, which they can do whether it's platted or not. But what you should do is preserve this so that there can be a road that runs between the boardwalk and Mr. O'Neill's home and then cuts in front of his property to get access to one of the EBSCO lots. That is fundamentally why we're here today. We don't want that to happen, and it's not fair to Mr. O'Neill for that to happen. That's why we're asking for the abandonment of the easement.
That's not what I heard him say.
Well, that's what he just said. He said he wants...
He said it needs to be maintained until they get platted, and they're going to plat around that. Once the plat's done, it will be abandoned.
But what he didn't say is that they have the ability to grant access through their property to any of those lots, whether they plat or not.
I understand
and that's our point.
I understand.
And what he's saying is, well, we may choose not to do that. And we may choose to come back and ask you to allow a road to be constructed between the boardwalk and Mr. O'Neill's home and to get access to his property through the easement that you have. And we feel that that's completely unfair to Mr. O'Neill, and that's why we're asking for the abandonment.
Well, I don't think a roadway could be constructed
Well, then there's
Between
no
the
reason
boardwalk
not
and
to abandon the easement, so that's why we're asking for it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You've had your hand up the whole meeting.
Yeah, well, I'd like to speak on this.
You're more than welcome to speak, but come up to the microphone. Were you sworn in?
No, I wasn't.
That's fine. Just raise your hand. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will provide to this board will be the truth?
No, yes.
Thank you.
What's your name, sir?
My name's Bob Mitchell, Mitchell. I live across the street from this. For you that have more than a 10-year memory on what's going on, I used to be here often because I was running into the water system when we were required to sewer it. And there's probably nobody in the county that knows more about the right-of-ways and the easements of Inlet Beach water as of 10 years ago, I guarantee you. Because haphazardly, they abandoned a lot of the right-of-ways and easements to whatever reasons, and then all of a sudden we had to come back and make arrangements to sewer through areas that had been abandoned. But I'm not fighting this, truthfully. The one thing we got to always key in on, and I told the people at EBSCO this, Mr. Comer, I think it was Brian was his name, was the acting person at the time. His grandfather used to own this piece of property. And we got to understand the difference between a right-of-way and an easement. An easement is a passage across your property that you grant somebody. A right-of-way is a road. It's drawn out, it's platted, it's a road. Now, the technicalities of the law that I was just hearing, that was intentionally blocked at one time by barbed wire, but Mr. Comer, who used to own all that property back there, intentionally preserved that right-of-way by running a power line down there and then bringing it behind Mr. Hayes, excuse me, O'Neill, Mr. O'Neill's house and his. And he brought it across here and fed his 3 houses to pertain the right-of-way coming down east to west, south and north, where Mr. O'Neill's piece of property is. Now, when they wanted to do, EBSCO wanted to do the beach resort area, they abandoned all of their 33 feet on the south side or the north side of their property. They got that abandoned as part of this project. I'm the guy who convinced them that we were never going to abandon, because that was the decision Inlet Beach made after the crisis we had, any right-of-ways, and they weren't going to get the one going north and south unless they did something for the community. And since they were cutting off the community's normal beach walk for the last 50 years to build a walk over there, it only took me about 3.5 years to convince the county that they actually had a right-of-way there and they had a beach access, and it took us a long dang time to get it numbered. But the county eventually did that. So what they're arguing about is we abandoned ours on the south side of that property line, but we want to keep his on the northern side so that we can get something through there someday. Now, where's the logic of that, and why didn't they hold off abandoning, getting abandonment to theirs until this thing was all plotted? Because they needed the space, because a right-of-way has a setback line and an easement doesn't. And the reason we convinced them to build the right-of-way, the walkway over the easement. Somebody question me on that?
Yes, sir. The easement does have a setback. We measure setbacks from the greater extent of the easement. Excuse me?
10 years ago, there wasn't one.
10 years ago, you suggested the county didn't know they had an easement there.
No, there's a right-of-way there.
We're much more aware of those things now, and the policy is to measure setbacks from the extent of that easement, not allow people to build right up to that easement.
Well,
anymore.
That
happened in the past.
10 years ago, when this was all set up.
Go ahead and face up here and address us if you would, please.
10 years ago, when this was all set up, there was no setback from an easement, but there was from a right-of-way. So his engineer, who was a real sharp guy, explained to him that yes, if he would give us back a 15-foot easement and build the walkover, it would be very cost effective to him, because his first answer to me was, why in the hell would I do that? Why am I going to spend that money? And I said, because you're going to have more land to build on eventually. And he said, is he right, Bob? To his engineer, and he goes, yeah, he's right. So he said, okay, I'll build it. Then I won, except he put 90 steps in it. So anybody 70 years old can't walk up and down, you can't pull your stuff up to the beach and back. But there is nothing wrong with abandoning this piece of isolated easement, right away. It's not, it's right away. But that sits in the back of his house, and EBSCO did away with all of theirs.
Okay, we're not talking about theirs, I understand that.
Okay, but now they're fighting. It goes this way. EBSCO did away with all theirs, and now somebody is objecting to getting rid with this one. The logic just doesn't make sense. And why anybody should have to wait doesn't make sense.
Okay.
Does that history kind of help you with some of this?
It helps. It helps understand things, but
Okay.
I'm still talking about a right-of-way abandonment, which a lot of people have problems with. So I appreciate your input.
But we abandoned everybody else's around.
I didn't.
Who else you got? Who else you got?
Anybody else that has not signed up to speak who wishes to speak? We'll close public comments. Commissioners, discussion? Questions? Motions?
It's been there all these years. I haven't heard of a real reason to change anything right now. And the county's, both the planning department and the public works' position is to not abandon right-of-ways. So barring some extraordinary reason, I can't find why we should go against the planning department and public works.
Making a motion?
And so I'm making a motion to deny.
We have a motion. We have a second.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion. I agree with you. I don't see a reason to abandon.
No, I don't. I didn't hear a compelling reason.
Yeah. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the motion to deny, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I believe that's the last item on the agenda, right? We stand adjourned.